This is the first week of Advent, and as you know, I take a little different approach to it than tradition. No big surprise there. We have to explore new ideas all the time, and one thing I realized I was doing each year was getting sort of into a rut with Advent. If you look at the past years, you'll see the imagery that is on our YouTube channel for every year is the same. So I would just kind of dredge it up and redo it. So it's probably good I forgot the green candle today, because we can mix this up. We don't want to get lost in the symbolism. It's fun. The symbolism is fun, and it's we peg things, with symbolism. We peg it in our thought. It helps us to kind of grasp things. But the idea of the green candle is green represents life. It is the evergreen. It's eternal life, the idea that we attach to it. And so it's a very appropriate symbol, but white represents the Christ or the spiritual dimension in each of us. So we start with that, actually, and, we were lighting all the other candles, but I'm not going to go through that ritual this year. We're in a new place. It's a new time. I'm an old man. I'm not not trying to impress anybody. And, the seasons are what they are. They all mean something. They all started someplace, and, we're grateful to acknowledge that. And I love the Christmas thing and all that. But anyway, that's my excuse for getting the candle. So long thing. So we're looking at life and enthusiasm. That remains the same. So the energy we call life is a mystery. When materially based science attempts to trace life to its origins, they look to the fossil record. The earliest life forms were apparently single-celled creatures that inhabited the oceans. Through billions of years, more complex forms developed. What is not known is how the energy of life began animating these biological forms. Science says it just happened. And I have read many articles on this, and you always come to that part, they tell you what happened, but they don't explain how, although there is a theory that life came from outer space. You probably have heard that. It rode in on an asteroid somehow, and because they can't figure out how it would have started here, just on matter. How does life arise from matter? And that's the big mystery. We know it did. We just don't know how it did, and even they try to recreate that in the laboratory and have been unable to do so. If they ever do it, then they may know how that happened. But what we know, what we assume, I can't say I know it, but Earth probably started out as a big rock, a big debris floating in space from whatever they say. It was a big bang. I would question that, although I have no authority or no expertise on how to challenge that. My gut feeling, my intuitive suspicion is we're going to find a better solution. But somehow there was matter, and then life started in it. Life jumped over. Because we look at life as omnipresent, an energy in which we live and move and have our being. So how does it go from the invisible to the visible? That's the question. And I don't know that we really need an answer. It's just interesting to me, to go back and look at these things. But it did evolve over time. We do have the fossil record, and they can date these things, and they can say the earliest stuff that they found so far looks like that picture on the left. That looks like, one of our ancestors, I guess. And there's so many things that have happened between then and now. But to me, that's always been fascinating, a fascinating study. I remember as a kid, we would go out hunting with our BB guns, in the woods, and there was a creek down not too far from our house. But there was a long fossil that went through the bedrock of that creek. And it was, I found out later it was a plant, a plant stem. But it was like 10 feet long and kind of interesting. But here, I mean, you find brontosaurus and all kinds of things here. It's a little bit bigger than a plant. But the people that know these things, they can look at fossils, they can tell, how from the level they were discovered in, how old they are. All that. That's fascinating. This whole area to me is very fascinating. Just we went down to Moab on Friday for lunch, and I'm still taken by the scenery here. The Book Cliffs even. You look at them and they're in layers. They look like a layered cake. And every one of those layers is millions of years, and underwater and on top of water and underwater again, and there's all kinds of things that have happened. It'd be very interesting to see a video of that, how in fast motion, of course, just to see the changes that occur. But we know that happens, and there is what we don't know how it happened is how did life jump from the invisible to the visible? And I do think they will figure that out someday. Not that it's going to change any of our lives, but it just, we're curious beings. We want to know how these things come about. But if you think of the idea that you are life and you are an eternal being at that level, at the unseen level, we're obviously not eternal at the physical level. I'm feeling quite mortal today. My vertigo's kind of kicked in. I'm hanging on for dear life up here. But so the body, kicks in and plays these things, these games. But the essence of what we are is eternal. And when a person steps out of the body momentarily, which I think is fascinating, they come up with a whole different way of thinking about the relationship to the body. Most don't want to come back because of the freedom that they experience. But we're here, and we do want to be here. We want to enjoy it. We want to be here and enjoy it as long as we're here. We want to make the most of it. But it's important to separate the two in the sense that life is the eternal energy that is behind the expression. The expression will probably change. It's changed many times since Earth began. But what I can envision myself is this creative life force. It's a field that's always there. And when the material elements come together in a way that will support this energy, it's like completing a circuit. The light comes on, something happens at the material level. We just don't understand that yet. But I have no doubt we'll keep pursuing that question. However things started, this living energy is, as John says, the light of each one of us. I believe this life that is our essence predates all organisms, that it has no beginning and no end. As I think about this, I'm struck with the sense of awe that this eternal life is given to me, as me. The same realization Jesus may have had when he said, before Abraham was, I am. Whatever life he was, it's the same as us. We're all one and the same. We draw from that same infinite pool, and you can't think of it as a pool. You have to think of it as a everywhere present essence. But we will tend to make Jesus a different person. But if you say also, before Abraham was, I am, all of us can say that. And as we contemplate that type of thing, I've always been, how could that be? I have probably manifested through many different bodies, many different personalities. But that's also a very interesting question. Maybe it's not different personalities. Maybe I pretty much maintain the same blueprint of personality that I have now. Maybe I've always been recognizable in that way. I don't know how that works. But what people say when they do step out of their body is, I am I. I recognize myself as me. This is me that's floating around, and looking at crab nebulas and doing all these things that we do when we leave the body temporarily. They recognize themselves as themselves. And that's comforting to me. The materialist believes that when the body goes, so does that self, so does that identity. And that does not appear to be the case. It appears that we maintain that. And I think the question I would have is, how does that work? How do we maintain our identity? How does that, and why? Why would that be the case? But then I think about, you look at a field full of lilies, and there's not two of them that are alike. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own slightly different ways of expressing. I think I've told you, when I was growing up, my father got into the chinchilla business, and we had 300 of those chinchillas. We had 300 of them in cages in our basement. And it was the job of my two brothers and I to take care of them, to feed. And you feed them, and you give them hay, and you give them a dust bath once a week, and clean their cages once a week, which is, other kids were out playing. We were cleaning chinchilla cages. But you would get to know each of these animals. They all have different personalities, and it's true with animals. We have some cats around the house now. They all have completely different personalities. They're very different. So the personality plays a role in this whole creative process, in the whole life force. When you think of life as the energy, you would think of it as indifferent. You would think of it as unexpressed, but then it comes down through us, and it gets a fingerprint. It gets an address. It gets a specific identity, and that's us. We lose sight of that, but even if we regain, if we would have a complete mystical experience, we would still regain or maintain our identity, our individual identity. And I think that's part of the process. I wrote about that in my prayer book years ago, that's how God finds unlimited expression through the material universe. It's through individualizing and expressing, in a multitude of ways. No two of us are alike. They say no two snowflakes are alike, but I don't know how they know that. They assume no two are alike. But I think I saw one when I was about 5 that looked very much like the last one I saw, so I don't know that there's any proof of that. It's been a few years. But I think the idea is there's kind of a mathematical formula that they would follow to say it's not possible for that to happen. I don't know how they came up with that. But it's they say the same is true with every grain of sand on the beach. That's probably a government study that we're involved in, actually. That's my job. When we describe a person as being full of life, we're usually referring to their enthusiasm for living. If we feel a lack of enthusiasm, it may be good to contemplate this ageless energy that we are. It's easy to bottle it up in restricting perceptions, affirmations of being too old and too tired. And that gets kind of easy to do, to say I'm this age and I'm kind of winding down, and I don't expect to live in this body forever, and it certainly isn't functioning quite like it was when I was 27, but doesn't mean I can't enjoy what I do. I do different things. Beth and I used to go camping every weekend, and now I don't even want to look at a tent. Just motel, fine, sure. We still have the tents, yeah, just in case. Get enthusiastic again about that, but it doesn't mean I'm not enthusiastic about living. I don't ski anymore. I don't want to get a concussion or break a bone or anything like that. I'm not anxious to do that. I acknowledge, but I know some of you still do, and you're probably older than I am. But I just choose not to do it. I sold my motorcycle. I sold our motorcycle because I want to live longer, and sometimes people that ride those things don't. But no, that's not really the reason. I just feel like I have reached a physical limitation. I don't want to risk getting out on a bike anymore. Three-wheeler maybe, but I don't think so. I don't want to maintain it. I don't want to have to do that. The life that we are does not age and it does not wear out. Yes, the organism does both of these things, but we are not the organism. Before Abraham was, we were too. That thought alone is energizing. So I think about that kind of stuff. You know, I think, what is this me that I am? What is this I? What is this life force that's manifesting as me? It's good to just sit quietly with your eyes closed and contemplate that. What is this me that I am? What's this, was it Meister Eckhart, that which we're looking for is that which is doing the looking? It's, what is that's doing the looking? It just, it kind of stimulates the way we think about ourselves. Here's an interesting fact. If this sounds far-fetched, consider that science tells us our body is about 60% water. And that water is one of the oldest substances on Earth. 60% of the physical body could actually be billions of years old. Think about that. You look up water. How old is water? And they'll say it's one of the oldest substances on the planet. Some will say there's water that's just millions of years old, not billions. But even if you're just millions of years old, that's a lot of birthdays. Can we not imagine our life energy having even more resilience than water? But when you stop and just think about that, 60% of this body is water, and that could be 4 billion years old. That's kind of a mind blower when you think about it. So if somebody says you're looking old, you say, I am old. I'm 4 billion years old. At least 60% of me is. And I would imagine the other 40% is not exactly young, because what is it, carbon? And I don't know what all the stuff is that we're made of. I've seen little piles of things scientists, they say, here's what a human body is if you break it down. So you're a little pile of this and a little pile of that. But basically indestructible, because energy or matter changes, it's a form of energy, but it's still the same thing. So when you even think of the body, so what is this aging thing? That's, it's the mechanics of the body. It seems like everything has an age limit. Science looks out at the stars and they'll say there's stars that are just emerging out of a nursery. They're just being born. There's stars that are teenagers and they're causing all kinds of problems. There's adult stars that are very well behaved and, doing what they do. We live by one, as a matter of fact. And then there's stars that are old and crotchety and they're blowing everything up around them. So there's every age of something that big, and you're talking a long time. You're talking very old, go way back. So it appears that everything on the material plane has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but the life force doesn't. It's a continuum, and so one star blows up over here, and another is born out of the nursery. It's a continual process, and it all happens so slow we don't see it, within our life. Although there have been pretty interesting changes that occurred up there. But when I have a nice telescope, it's a 8-inch telescope. It's not real powerful. But in town here, I can't see anything. It's just, it's almost, I had it out, built a little shed for it and was going to use it. It just didn't work. When we lived up in the mountains in Evergreen, the foothills, 7,600 feet, no lights, and it was just absolutely gorgeous, perfect. But you see these clusters of stars. They call them clusters of stars, I think. It's globular clusters. That's what they call them. That they've always been up there ever since I've been on this earth, but I've never seen one. When you see something like that, it's like, gosh. Or you'll see a nebula. It's a huge mass of gas. We see plenty of that on Earth, of course, but not anything this large. And it's they describe it as light years. The telescope tells you, you know, how far it is away, how big it is, and all of this has got a little computer thing on it. But it's an incredible place that we live. And we're just seeing such a small part of it. So we define ourselves in the same way. You know, we're this body, we've been here, and we're in it. And it's kind of our indexing, the way we think of who we are. But we're actually part of that globular cluster out there somehow. You know, we're related to it. And, you know, we don't necessarily think about that kind of thing, but the life that is in us is in that as well. It's everywhere present. And we just can't grasp that with our normal thinking. It's very difficult to grasp. It's fun to think about it, though, and it's fun to read about it. It's fun to see the photographs they're sending back, you know, from Hubble and what's the new one? James, it's right on the tip of my tongue, but anyway, it's an incredible telescope, space telescope. But that we can do that kind of thing, and they can tell, you know, how to adjust it from all these. You remember when they changed the mirrors on Hubble? It was like, as Jay Leno said, it wasn't the mirrors on Hubble that was out of focus, it's everybody else. You know, the rest of the world, the rest of the universe is out of focus. So though this kind of thinking can be fun, we really don't need to get this exotic to recognize and affirm the creative life force of God enlivens our mind, energizes our body, and constantly creates new opportunities for greater expression through every facet of our existence. What I do when I get into a state like I'm in, which is the world is a little bit out of focus, you know, and is I will sit quietly and just envision this life in me radiating out through every aspect of my body. It's a healing prayer, a healing affirmation. And I'll speak to it, you know, I'll thank it for flowing through me in creative ways and healthy ways, healing ways. And if it's information I am needing, it'll be intelligent ways. We'll get to that in the fourth week. But it is very good to hold pictures like that of this radiant light of life, of perfect wisdom expressing through us, and then letting the body relax, not trying to fix anything, but letting the life do its perfect work, you know, right here and right now. And I always feel this stress go away, you know, it just drops off. Where I notice stress is kind of in stomach and, you know, head and kind of the center of my body. And I let that go, visualizing the healing light radiating out through from that point. And it's very healing, very helpful. And then as your body relaxes, it's like a weight is lifted. But the thing I never try to do is bring about a healing, to just let to know this light force, this light energy is a healing presence, and let it do its perfect work. There's no responsibility on my part just to let go and let God. You know, it's the old cliche, but it's true. And when you do that, when I find myself doing that, it's like something lifts. And, you know, I'm able to get through this. When this all first hit me, I couldn't get through a talk. I couldn't finish a Sunday talk. I'd have to go away, go back home. So I'm able to handle it better. I haven't had it quite this much for quite a while, but it's whatever it is, it's something I'm dealing with. And it's, I don't know what lessons are here for me or whatever, but part of, I think, what I'm telling you right now is it gets your attention to become aware of the creative life force and to not direct it, but see that it is working in ways that are practical, in ways that are helpful. And then, as I've had the opportunity twice this week to turn this on somebody else, to take somebody else into my time of prayer, you know, and to see the picture of this life flowing through them. And what does that do? I don't know. It does something for me, I know that. Whenever I can hold somebody in the light. It's the same with the idea of forgiveness. The whole point of forgiveness is not to affect somebody else. It's to open the avenue for this life to flow freely. Because when we hold resentment towards somebody, we're shutting that down. We're in a sense turning a valve. And forgiveness, as I've said many times, has less to do with another person than it does to do with what we are doing to ourselves. And so that's what we remind ourselves of. And excuse me, when you can do that, I actually had an opportunity for a person that somebody reminded me of something that happened several years ago, and it brought up some unresolved feelings. And so what are those unresolved feelings? It's a blockage of the life force. It has nothing to do with the person that they're directed to. It has everything to do with the mechanism of your own spirit, your own self. So forgiveness is saying, it doesn't matter what happened, here's what's happening, here's what's happening now. I now release this energy, this bottled up energy, and that's all it is. It's bottled up energy, and where it resides is in the subconscious mind. We have this great storage facility that needs to be cleaned out once in a while. And how do we know it needs to be cleaned out? Somebody reminds us of something we forgot that we haven't forgiven. That's how it works. The thing I fear most has come upon me, it has to. It has to come to our awareness for us to let it go. We probably carry a million things. Who knows what we brought over from any previous life? I don't even want to think about that. Well, I do think about it, but not too often. The gift of life will never wane. It is as alive now as ever. God is life, and you and I are expressions of God. Keep this thought on the front burner of your thinking. Watch it stir up creatively new possibilities. That's really what this is all about, the whole idea of enthusiasm. When I'm working on something like my book, I get stuck on it. When I shift my perception just a little on whatever it is I'm dealing with, you write yourself into a corner and it's hard to get out sometimes. But when that enthusiasm breaks through, it's like new ideas come and you see that same thing in a very different way and you can fix it, literally. And it's what's true in that kind of a project is true in every aspect of life. We feel like we're bottled in. We feel like life is kind of stagnant. But don't try to fix it. Just start affirming that greater life is now expressing through me. And it'll kickstart your enthusiasm in ways that you hadn't even thought about. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. Thanks again for your interest in independent unity, and have a wonderful week.